Big checks, big sacks of fish, big-time bass fishermen, they all have one thing in common: fishing at the highest level. The right cast, the right bait, the right spot, making the right move. Welcome to Lost Lake, where the world's most efficient anglers, the top pros on the FLW and Bassmaster Elite Series tours, are given one day to figure things out on a lake they are unfamiliar with. It's no-holds-barred dissection, and unless they want to come up empty, all of their tricks and secrets will be on display. Brent Ehrler's surfer dude looks and laid-back attitude hide a fiercely competitive nature and fishing skills that match up with those of anyone on the planet, thanks largely to his ability to close out a victory. Not only does he have 2 FLW Series wins to his credit, but he also has 2 championships under his belt, one on the former Stren Series and one on the FLW Tour. While he's brought a Western bag of tricks with him from California, anyone who thinks that he's not among the most versatile pros on tour is asking to get beaten. Today, we have Brent on a lake in Southern California that he has not previously seen. No doubt he'll use some of the tricks that have helped him win elsewhere in California. Today's Lost Lake is typical of the Southern California experience: deep, clear, and mostly rock, which ranges from pea gravel and chunk rock to steep bluffs. There are some flats at one end, while the other end is tapered more like a river. Brent starts casting his big fish bait, the swim bait, and looking for either a key bite or some indication of what to expect as the day goes on.
I really like to start off with a swim bait, especially out here in California, just for the main reason that they stock trout, and in my experience, they seem to bite the swim bait better first thing in the morning and then later in the day. Now, I don't know if it has something to do with not getting as good of a look at a bait, whereas maybe 9, 10 o'clock when it's bright and sunny, they it doesn't look natural to them. So right off the bat, maybe they're more aggressive too, and so they'll eat that. So I almost always start off with a swim bait just because it seems like I get more bites, first thing in the morning.
When rainbow trout were stocked in California lakes a few decades back, it set off a rampage that hadn't been seen since the gold rush over a century earlier. The trout were intended to be caught by recreational anglers, but opportunistic Florida strain largemouths beat their human counterparts to the punch and quickly grew to epic proportions. Thus was the swim bait phenomenon born. It's a technique that may not produce numbers, but it can produce the bite of a lifetime. Even if you don't catch them, oftentimes a following fish will give away her location.
When I first got on the water, I honestly thought that the swim bait was going to be the key, at least in the mornings. I really thought that that was going to be the key to getting a few bites, and then maybe slowing down and throwing a worm or a jig or something. That was my immediate perception of what was going to happen.
The swim bait and Brent's starting spot don't produce early, so he leaves the steep banks and heads to a rocky flat bank. Perhaps more importantly, he lays down the swim bait rod and picks up one with the shallow running crankbait. Cranked parallel to the bank, he can put the trolling motor on high and cover water.
There's fish. Get in here. Look at that. Boy, that didn't take long when I picked up that crankbait. That didn't take long at all.
As hoped, the crankbait produces quickly, and Brent tries to break down the area further, determining what else is here and why they're biting. One thing's for certain: the deflection properties of the diving plug cause a reaction strike from bass that may be in neutral or even negative moods.
There's fish. Not that big, but another one on that shallow crank. I mean, I guess that's part of the process of just, fishing different baits until you get a bite. I was so dead set on that swim bait. I mean, it did not take long. I switched over to that 1.5. Square bill, shallow runner. I mean, that thing doesn't get more than, 4 or 5 feet deep. To cover water effectively, I really like to throw a crankbait and just get on the bank and start running the bank. And to me, it really shows you a lot about the area. It shows you what's underneath the water, what kind of structures down there, what the fish key on, and you just really, you can cover a ton of water doing that. And to me, that's the best way. Just get on the bank, throw a crankbait. You can learn just about everything there is to know about a lake. Let me show you this crankbait. This is a Electrocraft RC 1.5. And it's basically just a shallow running crankbait. It has a square bill on it, and I'll show you this. The bill is square on it. And this is a great shallow water crankbait for doing exactly what I'm doing right now. Right now, we've just come through, that last fish I caught was on the corner of this dam. This is where we fished earlier with a swim bait, and I did not have a bite. Had 0 bites on the swim bait, and in one quick little pass, I lost one and caught one on the crankbait. So, getting to new water and just kind of finding out what they're gonna bite is obviously half the battle. You gotta figure out what those fish want. So far, I've only tried 2 different things. I've tried the swim bait, and now I've tried the shallow running crankbait. And I should have jumped over and changed up faster, but I honestly, I wanted to give that swim bait a chance. I really did, because it's a good way to catch a big fish. It's early winter, it's when they bite the swim bait, so I had to try it. But now, based on what I found in the last little bit, I wish I'd thrown the crankbait earlier.
Brent's morning didn't start off the way he had hoped, but his switch to a crankbait has clued him into part of the puzzle. He's moving now up to the north end of the lake. It's shallower and flatter there, and he believes that the technique that got him the strikes down south should produce even better after the move.
Right now, we just ran upriver, and this is really a typical lake in a sense that we ran north, which is upriver, and we're gonna get to the shallower end of the lake. And typically you can find a little bit off-colored water and more structure, whether it's grass or sticks. And in this case, we have a lot of sticks. Now the water's down, but there's a lot of sticks in the water still. And the water's a little different color. So a lot of times, especially when the sun comes out and starts to warm up, that little bit off-colored water warms up faster. And fall, winter, and spring, that's a key in the afternoons, is getting to a little bit warmer water. And typically it just has to do with the sun and just warming up that off-colored water. So right now we're just running the shallow crankbait, just seeing if we can find anything up here in the shallower water. Time of year to me does dictate what I'm gonna fish and where I'm gonna go. And right now we're kind of early winter, and to me the fish really feed on shad. They really get to bulk up. They want to feed on shad. They bulk up as much as they can just to kind of prepare themselves for that winter time, when they really slow down. So to me, a shad colored pattern is going to be the best, and then also just kind of covering water, looking to see what the key is on where you're at. Sometimes it's shallow, sometimes it's deep, sometimes it's flat mud, and today it seemed like that rock and transition was the best thing to hit. One thing that's crucial with this 1.5 is getting, you want that bait banging against the bottom. You want it hitting and deflecting off of targets. And I noticed back there that I wasn't hitting bottom, so I ran the boat a lot closer. I got a little stretch of bank that's deeper, so I'm running right up tight against the bank because I want that bait actually bouncing off the bottom. That's when you get your strikes, is when it's hitting objects and bouncing off. So if you notice that, you're making some casts, and all of a sudden you're not hitting bottom, get on the bottom, get closer, run parallel, and get that bait digging on the bottom. You'll get more bites.
The bites aren't fast and furious up north, but Brent is committed to this area for the time being. He's still fishing fast, covering water, and trying to tease inactive bass into biting.
Oh, there he is. Oh, that feels like a decent one too. Come on. Stay on. Stay on. Don't jump. Stay down. Stay down. Stay down. I'm going to swing this one. Get in here. Look at that. That is a nice one. Look at that one. Nice. Oh man, that was fun. You know, I got into a little area here. That's a nice one. That's a 2.5 pounder at least. Perfect. I got into a different area here. It was really neat. Something I can kind of tell about this bank is it's shallow, but it has a good little depth to it. It's that's kind of misleading, but I was into where I could get my crankbait to dig, but the boat was in about 5 to 7 feet of water. It just looked right. It has good gravel, a couple little stick ups, a couple big boulders, just prime. I mean, that's just a perfect case when you get up into the northern end of the lake like this and get something like that. I mean, look at that structure right there. That's perfect. Perfect. I threw that shallow runner right across there and he bit it. It was awesome. See if I can do it again. How I concentrated on the areas that I fished today was basically taking into the fact that the water level dropped and there's not that much structure in the lake right now. So finding the key rocks and finding those transitions where it went from rock to gravel was the key. I really like to look at the surroundings, look at areas where I believe that there's going to be fish. And one thing I like to do is basically cover a lot of water, but I like to hit as many variables as I can, meaning shallow, deep, rock, sticks, gravel, sand, and do it in a short period of time. Now right here, we have a good flat bank with gravel, sticks, shallow water. Behind us, right here, there's steeper vertical stuff with deeper, steep rocks. By doing this, I can get to a bunch of different scenarios in a short period of time. So when you get to a new lake you don't know, look for something that has a bunch of things close to each other. Try and find something that has different things mixed in, and not only will it get you keyed maybe towards they're only on the steep stuff, or maybe they're only on the flat stuff, but maybe it's just the transition, and fish like those transitions going from deep to shallow, shallow to deep. So try that. When you go to a new lake, try and look at something, take different variables and try and mix them in and fish them real fast.
The only thing moving faster than Brent's trolling motor is his mind. The gears are spinning at warp speed as he heads down the bank, trying to discern whether changes in depth, casting angles, or even the type of rock make a difference. Brent's strategy of covering water with the crankbait has been rewarded with a solid fish, thanks to his strict scrutiny of the changes in the bank. He still hasn't put a monster in the boat, but in California, you're always just moments away from a brute.
Oh, wow. Oh, that might be a good one. Yeah, I think that is a good one. Stay on, stay on. Wow, that's a big one. Oh my goodness, that fish is huge. Wow. Jeez, it's a giant. Oh my goodness. That's a big one. Oh my goodness. Stay on, fish, stay on. Stay on, open your mouth. Yeah, that thing is awesome, look at that. That fish is so big. My goodness, look at that thing. That's like a 7-pounder. My goodness. Look at that bait too, right? Oh man. That is so crazy. I cannot believe that. That's a giant. Oh my goodness, I can't even hold it, it's so big. Wow, look at that. That was on that BDS3. I changed up something about that. They like that bait. Man, look at that thing. That is so awesome, man. That's so fun. Wow. Look at that thing go. I made a cast. I was on the flat sandy side. I made a cast right to where it got steeper, and that's where that fish bit, right on that transition. That's a great thing to look at when you're out on a new lake, is look for something different like that. Something to where it's all steep behind us here, right there it's shallow and flat. Right when I got to right where that shallow flat hits that steeper is right where that one hit it. Man, that was awesome. That was such an awesome fish. Wow. Man, I want another one like that. That was too cool.
The sun is up high and the water has slicked off. The result is that a bite that looked to be improving has all but died off. Brent's in a dry spell and it's time to figure out how to switch things up to put a few more fish in the boat, preferably some good ones.
I had a flurry in the morning on that crankbait and the wind slowed down and I didn't catch anything. So I went and tried a few other things. I went and threw a worm, I threw a jig, I even found some boat docks and skipped a worm up underneath the boat docks, and it didn't work, nothing happened. So I went back to the crankbait, and what I tried this time is I went to this different crankbait. It's still a shallow running crankbait. This is the BDS3 and it does not have a rattle, and that seemed to be the key to get a couple strikes when that wind shut down. Well, haven't had a bite in a while. I think we ought to run back down to the south end of the lake. Get down and, you know, try and hit some of that little deeper water. Maybe try a deeper diver crankbait, or, you know, run the shallow runner down there, but just get a little change of scenery. We've been up here and it's really gotten slow. So make a little change, kind of run around and see what we can find out.
On a small lake like this one, it's nothing to head from one end to the other to effectuate a change in strategy. Brent is headed back to the south end to try to make something happen. With a 7-pounder on the other end of the lake keying him in, Brent believes the feed bag should be on down south.
There's one. Right at the boat. Stay on. There we go. Nice. Boy, you ate that thing good. That wind came back up, and I just, you know, as soon as the wind started to blow, I figured they'd bite it again. Sure enough, didn't take long, I got another bite. When I got around some of that stuff that was a little bit deeper, I picked up this deeper diving crankbait, and I made a couple casts with this thing. Now, what I would basically do is just fish so that bait was hitting the bottom. So when it was shallow, I threw the shallow running crankbait. When it got deep, I picked this thing up and fished until I found the shallow stuff again. So basically, have a couple rods on your deck, have a different, you know, couple different diving depth crankbaits. And that was key for getting a couple extra bites today, was to throw this deeper diver on the deeper banks.
With the change in location, Brent quickly managed to add another bass to his tally. He's also likely to benefit from the increased wind, which cuts the surface and may make bass less wary. His deep diving crankbait is deflecting off the available cover, and Brent has pieced together the bites he's had and determined that the key spots contain changes in both depth and bottom content.
That might be a good one. There we go. On the deep crank. Real lethargic. Kind of thought it was a stick again. That one was on the deep crank. What I did is, been throwing that 1.5, now I threw the 2.5, but the DD in the same color. I wanted something just to get a little bit deeper. And what it is, there's just a point that sticks out right here. That's a little better one. And it's just a long finger point. It comes way out, it has good rock on it, has sand on either side. And I made a couple casts, about my third cast across that point is when that one bit. And that's one thing that is kind of crucial, and I'm really bad at it, but making multiple casts on one spot, you know, especially like this, it just looks good. Especially on a deeper diving crank. I'm bad. I just run down the bank and don't even give it a second thought, but for some reason I stopped right here and made a couple casts, and it was like my third or fourth cast is when that fish bit. So that's definitely something you should try. When you get to an area where you know it's good down there, make a couple casts, because they don't always bite it on the first one.
Like many anglers, Brent would probably admit that he was tempted to remain in an area where he caught a fish or two today to grind it out. But covering water isn't always a matter of just putting the trolling motor down and flying down the bank. Once he figured out a few commonalities between his bites, he figured that it would pay off to make multiple casts to discrete areas. In the spring and fall, bass frequently group up in surprisingly small sweet spots.
Oh, that's a big one. That's a real big one. That's a real big one. Unless I got him foul hooked. I might have him foul hooked. Oh, that's a giant. Oh my goodness, that's a giant. Look at that thing. Oh my goodness, that thing's huge. Wow. Good grief. That thing is an absolute giant. Stay on, fish. Come on. Oh my goodness, look at that. Stay on, fish, stay on. Stay on. Come on, please stay on. Come on. Come on. Come on, fish. Yeah, look at that thing. Look at that thing. Nice. That is an awesome fish. Look at that. 9/11. 9.5 pounds on that Lucky Craft crankbait. Look at that thing. Good grief. What a fish. Wow, what a fish. All right, I'm gonna let him go. What a fish. 9-pounder on that RC 2.5. That is so crazy. I had a great time today. I love having a challenge of getting on a new body of water and trying to figure them out. Hopefully I showed you something. You know, for when you go out on a new body of water, hopefully, you know, those little keys, finding transitions in the cover, that'll definitely help you out. Doesn't matter if you're fishing fast or slow. If you can get on those different transitions like that, you'll have a better day on the water. I hope to see you out there. Look at that thing. Look at that thing. Nice. That is an awesome fish. Look at that.